Most people think there is only one way to retire. You work for 40 years, you save your money, and then when you're around 65 years old, you finally stop working. But what if I told you that there are two completely different types of retirement? One is the one that you hear about all the different time, which is the boring, traditional path that pretty much everyone follows. But the other one is a path that could allow you to retire decades earlier. And the crazy part is that most people don't even realize that there is that second option. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, what we talk about on this channel is how to go from a Honda Civic to a Lamborghini stage in your life. Not just financially, but in terms of freedom. And today I want to talk about something that has completely changed the way that I look at life, and that is going to be the two different types of retirement. So let's talk about traditional retirement, the boring one that no one really cares about whenever we're young. So traditional retirement, this is the system that most people grow up learning about. You go to school, you get a job, you work for 30 to 40 years, and along the way you save money in retirement accounts such as the 401k or Roth IRA. Then hopefully by the time that you're 65 years old, you saved enough money that you could finally stop working. Now there's nothing wrong with this path. Pretty much everyone follows it. Millions of people follow it. But the reality is that it requires you to trade most of your life for income, and then you spend decades working before you finally get to enjoy your time that you get back. Traditional retirement path is obviously boring. No one wants to put money aside in their 20s and 30s and then enjoy it whenever they're older. The reason why traditional retirement is important for most people is that once you get to that age, it can get really difficult to continue working. You get to a point where you just don't want to work anymore. And then so that what you're able to do while you're investing early is that you can put small amounts of money from your paycheck into your investment account. And then say, for example, once it reaches $1 million, then you can just live off that $1 million and then pretty much do whatever you want. But the issue with that I find is that that's just really boring, to be honest. Like, why would you want $1 million when you're 60? Why can't you have $1 million right now? So for the second part of this video, that's exactly what I'm going to be going over. Just for the record, I retired at the age of 33, and at the time, I didn't even have $1 million. But there are hidden ways or secrets that many people do not know about that you yourself could also leverage. So let's get to the fun stuff now. So the second type of retirement is something far fewer people talk about. Early retirement happens whenever someone builds income streams or systems that eventually replace their job income. So instead of saving until you're 40 years old, you actually build systems or you build a machine that makes you money without you having to work at all or trade your time for it. And many different things you could do to get this is things like businesses, investments, online income, real estate, owning real estate properties where tenants pay you rent, dividend income, which I can get into that later, but dividend income takes forever to build, but it is the most passive way to make income. And then the last one is going to be content creation. I pretty much did all these to a certain degree, but there were a few that did stick out more than the rest. But yes, the goal is simple. You build up systems that make money without you having to trade your time for it. So let's talk about what I did. So before COVID, I was working active jobs, and what active jobs is basically meaning that you're trading your time for money. So I go out there, I go work, and then I make money. That's your active income, which is the income that you start off with, but not necessarily the goal that you want to be stuck in. Your second type of income that you make is your passive income or your systems income. My main business that I do is make YouTube videos, but the part that people don't really see behind the scenes is that whenever you make long form content that is going to be relevant 20 years down the road, this video that you're watching right now is going to be something that's going to be continually getting played throughout the next 30 years. And then whenever people watch this video, and as this video continues to grow, then that means that I continue to get paid for the next 20 years. So that's just one example. But then another cool thing that I do is that not only are these videos that you're watching continue to keep growing, but I tie different types of products or courses or digital products, whatever you want to call it, into these videos so that as this video keeps growing, my products that I also tie in with it also keep getting purchased. So that is an example of how you can set up a system to get to that point. Businesses could also be a big one. In all, what businesses is just a system that runs in the background without you being there. So a example of this is, say for example, you have your own plumbing company. Initially, you have to do all the work to buy your own truck, do all the work, but then as soon as you start to recruit people, say for example 2 other plumbers that work for you, then you're able to just do the sales part of the whole business, where you're the one who's just talking to customers, setting up the work for your 2 plumbers to take care of. And then say for example, as your business continues to grow, then now you hire 4 plumbers who work beneath you, and then you hire 1 other admin that takes over setting up the appointments, and then say for example you could just take a back seat, and then your 5 employees that you have going now are completely running your plumbing company, and then now that business or system is running in the background without you being there. Another example would be real estate. So a lot of people who make money through real estate, so say for example I'm in the market to buy a house, but I buy a house where I could rent out one side of it to a tenant. So say for example I have a 2-family home, I live in one side, but then on the other side I rent that out to somebody else who's paying me say $1,500 a month, and that $1,500 a month that they're paying me is going to pay for the mortgage. So essentially I'm living for completely free. And then say for example 3-4 years down the road, I want to use my home that I have, my 2-family home that I currently live in, as a business. And then what I would do next would be I buy another house on top of the one that I already have, maybe a smaller one, whatever, but then I get another tenant to take my side that I was living in. So now I have 2 tenants living in one home that are paying me, say for example $3,000 a month, and not only would that be covering the mortgage, but I would also have a leftover profit that would be going into my pocket. So now if that leftover profit is covering for my expenses, or eventually I get to the point where that profit is covering for my expenses, I'm basically retired. And then I have to do nothing, just collecting checks. I could hire a property manager that takes care of any complaints or broken toilets, and then I'm basically retired at that point. And then I can go and do whatever I want. But basically the goal is simple. You build systems that make money without you requiring your time. You make money in your sleep. And I honestly think that everyone should get to a point where they're able to make money in their sleep, because once you're able to do that, then you really found freedom, and then you're basically retired. So the key difference between the two is that traditional money focuses on saving money, which is great, is definitely a part of the equation, but not necessarily complete freedom at an early age. Early retirement focuses on creating income early, setting up systems. So one is about slowly building a pile of money, which is reliable, is safe, but if you really want to take things to the next level, you want to focus on building systems that produce money. So I'll give you another example. Say, for example, somebody needs $4,000 a month to live. That's your expenses that you have every single month. If they save enough money by age 65 to generate that income, they can retire. But then let's look at it my way, or the smart way, I guess you could say. If somebody wants to generate $4,000 a month earlier in their life, when they're 30s, say for example, I was able to set up systems or an online business that pays me in passive income $4,000 a month, then that means that I'm technically financially independent. I don't have to do anything. The money just keeps coming in, and then I'm retired early because the money that I get no longer requires me to trade my time for it. So that's quite honestly what I did. I could have went the traditional way of saving my money, just putting money aside for my 9 to 5, and then use that to build my piggy bank so I could retire and then not do anything at 59 to 65 years old. But aside from my 9 to 5 job that I had, what I did from 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. was I used the internet, YouTube, whatever, to build out systems that continually pay me whenever I'm asleep. And then the more you keep growing that, and this is the cool part, as soon as you make $1 in your sleep, it becomes a really cool thing because it gets really addictive. And then not only that, it's easier to build that income. So it's the type of income that starts very slow. The beginning part is the hardest part, but once you get into it, and then once you learn the fundamentals or the concept of how you made that $1 in your sleep, it becomes a really big addiction. And then before you know it, you're making $100,000 a month completely doing nothing. It's obviously not easy to do, but again, you do have apps like YouTube. Just get YouTube Premium to avoid the ads. But you have all those resources. ChatGPT, you also have that. And then use those apps to leverage whatever you currently have. And then before you know it, you'll be retired early as well with a Lamborghini. But the big takeaway is most people only learn about that one retirement system, the boring one. They work for decades and eventually stop. But once you learn to understand the second system, the one that I used, you start asking yourself a different question. Not how much money do I need to save, but instead, how many systems can I build? So that's why I talk about going from a Civic to a Lamborghini. It's not really about the car. It's about understanding that there are different ways to design your life. And once you understand those options, everything will change. If you have any questions, I do videos on all those questions. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.